Oh man. You Jazz fans look like you're gonna get the same exact BS freaking treatment like I did the Dallas Maverick fans. Holy shit, man. I'm just utterly stunned by the performance of the Clippers today. The Clippers, after all the bad news we got earlier this morning, I literally woke up to the news of Kawhi Leonard essentially being out indefinitely. And then the Clippers strolling to Utah, strolling to Vivint Smart Home Arena, going to the cesspool of the R words. I'm gonna keep it. If you know what I mean by the R words, it's not you should know what I mean when you go to Utah, especially, Utah, Nevada. The R words or the M words, whatever you want to call them. Anyways, regardless. We stroll up in there, and after all the bad news, I'm thinking, Kawhi Leonard's going to be out indefinitely. He might have a potential tear of his ACL. It seems like we're potentially done. I hope we win, but I could definitely see us losing. And the Clippers, yet again, when everybody counted them out, myself included, they surprised me yet again, and they surprised the NBA world. Listen, tonight was a great night. You want to know why? For Clipper fans, why is it a great night? Not only did the Clippers win today in the way they won, the game before the Clippers and Jazz game, you had a Doc Rivers team blowing another lead to an inferior opponent. And I'm going to be laughing if the 76ers end up losing that series and the Clippers end up winning their series on Friday, because guess what? I'm definitely going to be tweeting. So, who was right when it said Doc Rivers was the problem? Oh, wait, he was. So far, it's looking like that way. If the Hawks can win and the Clippers can win, I'm telling you, man. My God. Listen, that would just be astronomical. But I'm going to get into the Kawhi news at the end of the video. But the Clippers stroll into Salt Lake City, into Utah, into the cesspool of that Jazz arena with all the historic moments that have happened. And the Jazz get stunned by the Clippers. Without Kawhi Leonard, Paul George and the boys lead, and they take the Clippers to a commanding 3-2 lead, going back to Los Angeles with a full packed arena. The guidelines are done. Win California is complete 100% full capacity open. So we're going back to a full capacity Staples Center in a closeout game. And I got to say this. We definitely have to make up for the 2015 3-1 deficit, the 3-1 blow. If we can win game 6, man, listen, I'm going to be overjoyed and happy. The only other news I could get that would be astronomically great was we win the series and we find out that Kawhi doesn't have a torn ACL. He's just got a sprain and he's got to sit out a few weeks. And if we can hold on against the Suns for long enough, maybe Kawhi Leonard can be able to play. We'll see when the time comes. But what I saw in tonight's game was a lot of heart, a lot of resiliency, a lot of toughness, a lot of grit, a lot of fight. Tonight's game reminded me of the 2018-2019 Clippers when they were just hard-nosed, rough, tough, and they just get down and dirty, and they're going to keep themselves in the game as best they can and somehow shockingly upset an opponent. That was the mentality of that team. And I saw a little bit of it in tonight's game with the Clippers, man. It was just a wonderful game on the Clippers side of things to watch. You have the first half where the Jazz in the first quarter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, the motherfucker drops 18 points. in the first quarter. And I'm like, are you serious? This dude's hitting uncontested looks, hitting contested looks with hands in his face. He's still making them in. And if you had told me a few hours ago the Jazz were going to go 17 of 30 in the first half from three, I probably would have seen that and been like, we're probably going to lose that game, aren't we? But no, the fact that the Clippers were only down 5 at the half was with what the Jazz were shooting and the way they were shooting from three was impressive because it just gave the Clippers that little bit of hope to say, they've had so many circus of going chuck up 3 shots and they have all gone in. And we're still in this game and we're only down 5 points. And the Clippers gritted in their teeth. They got down on defense. They played hard and they managed to take the lead near the tail end of the third quarter. And they managed to hold on to that lead, even though it did look like it was getting a little bit dicey. They managed to hold on to that lead and they secured a very hard-fought, tough W against the Utah Jazz. Obviously, standouts you can say were Paul George, most definitely, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, who started the lead, who started the whole holding on to the lead and everything for the Clippers. And another roundup to our boy Terrence Mann, man. Defensive Player of the Year just got yammed on. And personally, I enjoyed it. I don't know why the Clippers were always scared of Gobert. And listen, I understand. Will Gobert get occasional blocks? Yes, he will. But I just say take it to this fool and embarrass him. Gobert to me is just an average, solid center player. He's got real no skill. All he does is play defense and block. He's got no offensive game and nothing. I respect Terrence Mann for taking it to Rudy Gobert tonight and dunking on him. Definitely going to be a highlight of the series if we end up winning this series on Friday, which I hope we do. But it goes to show you this. The Jazz can damn near play somewhat perfect basketball. And they can still lose. Again, if you're a Jazz fan and you're checking this video out, what did I freaking say about this damn Jazz team? It doesn't matter. If you're an NBA fan checking this out, I said this about the Jazz. They're only a team that plays defense and chucks up threes. Other than that, they have no game plan. They have no interior paint game plan where they have Rudy Gobert dominating the paint. They have no mid-range game because they don't have a mid-range scorer. And that's kind of it. All they do is chuck up threes. Even with Mike Conley, they chuck up threes. And don't get me started with the Jazz fans that were comparing the Kawhi Leonard injury to Mike Conley. If you really believe Mike Conley compares to Kawhi Leonard, I hope you go back and do your homework. Yeah, 2-time Finals MVP over a guy who just makes the All-Star game. Yeah, that sounds very smart. Anyways. That's what the Jazz do. They just chuck up threes, and they live by the three. They die by the three. They're essentially the Houston Rockets 2.0. They finish the season making the most threes. Well, sometimes, yes, will it work in the playoffs every now and then for a game or two? Yeah. But usually it won't get you by. You can't replicate what the Golden State Warriors. And I know I've got on the Clippers in the past game recaps saying I don't like when the Clippers do the same thing when they chuck up threes. I definitely don't like that either. But regardless, the Clippers hit the shots when they needed to hit them, and the Jazz missed their shots. And they went cold in that third quarter. That third quarter for the Utah Jazz was abysmal. They couldn't make anything from three. They were like 0 of 10 from three. And because of it, it made the Clippers catch up with them, get out to the lead, managed to get a pretty secure lead going into the fourth quarter. And it was secure enough to where, guess what? The Jazz, just like in game 4, little too late. Because even though you made threes and you found your way to try to get yourself back in the game, it's little too late when it comes to making all these threes. And let me just say this. Let me look at the stat line for Donovan Mitchell. 21 points, 6 of 19 from the field and 4 of 14 from three. If I'm looking at my TL on Twitter, why is this man Donovan Mitchell not getting slandered? But we're just gonna rip Paul George for everything, huh? Paul George has had a pretty solid playoff run this year, and if the Clippers manage to end up losing the series, the first people are gonna go to is blame Paul George for it when he was the least of the Clippers' problems. Again, I ask, where's the same slander for these young players that don't show up? Where's the same slander for when Luka Doncic played the Clippers and he didn't show up in a few games? What is the same slander for Donovan Mitchell in a key home game where he didn't show up? Oh, wait, we're not going to do that because the young players can do no wrong, but Paul George can. I hope Paul George finishes the series off and has one more successful game in this series. We can go freaking go on to Phoenix and we'll talk about that series when we get there. But yeah, let's get on to the stats. Nicholas Batum, great performance. He again in the points thing, he didn't really do much, but just the defense and the physical presence he plays with, it really does help this team, man. I'm telling you, man. If the Clippers do not re-sign Nicholas Batum, I'm actually going to be pretty pissed off. I want the Clippers to re-sign Nicholas Batum, and I hope Nicholas Batum is willing and wanting to come back. So that's going to be a huge thing to watch there for the offseason. But I thought Nicholas Batum played good. He had, my God, he had all his 3-point shots. Well, not all of them. He made 3 of his 3-point shots that 6 attempted, which is essentially what he shot from the field. But he's played that physical presence. You know, he's played that physical presence, and I really do appreciate that from Nicholas Batum. Marcus Morris Sr. I knew when the Kawhi Leonard got hurt, I'm like, somebody's going to have to step up and give us something. And I'm like, I'm like, one, Paul George can't have an off night. Marcus Morris definitely can't have an off night now. And he continues his excellent play from game 4, and he drops 25 points tonight, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 10 of 16 from the field, hit 3 of his 4 3-point shots. And again, Marcus Morris Sr., man, great performance by him. He showed up again, and we're going to need him to show up in game 6. Because if he can't, we're going to be in trouble. But we need him to show up in game 6. Reggie Jackson, or AKA what they call him, Big Government. My fucking God. This man is insane. When the Clippers went on a cold spell, Reggie Jackson came on in the game in the 4th quarter and essentially got the Clippers out of the cold spell and saved them. Yes, I said it. I can't believe I'm saying this, man. I criticized Reggie Jackson I was one of the highly critics of Reggie Jackson. I did not like Reggie Jackson playing. I did not think his play would be sustainable in the playoffs. And this man is kicking my ass, and he's proving me wrong. And some of members of Clipper Nation that hate him, too. Now, that doesn't mean I love him. I still think he can do some boneheaded decisions. But, man, I'm just not going to lie. When we need a bucket, he usually makes a bucket when we least expect it. And there was a part in that 4th quarter. He went on a run to keep the Clippers ahead of the game when the Jazz were trying to find a way to come back in this game. And I just got to say this. Reggie Jackson is definitely a sleeper. Now, I don't know if I would bring him back. Listen, Reggie Jackson, Nicholas Batum, if they were offering to come back on a pay cut where they're like, listen, we'll come back to this team and we'll just play for $1 million. You know, I'll take it. But I wouldn't be shocked if Reggie Jackson leaves the team and goes somewhere else because someone will probably be offering him the money. The question is, will he want to stay, obviously, and play with his boy? Now, some Clipper fans will regret me like, I don't think we need Reggie. Some will say, no, I think we need Reggie. It's kind of up in the air for me if I want Reggie Jackson to be re-signed by the Clippers next year or not. Honestly, at this point, it's like, I wouldn't mind it although the defensive inefficiencies absolutely reek. But at the same time, I wouldn't hate it if they just let him go. Obviously, because they want to develop and move and use Kennard and Mann more. Speaking of Terrence Mann, before we get into Paul George, which honestly, I think I'm going to say Paul George for last. Terrence Mann, man, how about that dunk? How about that dunk? 13 points, only 1 of 5 from 3, 4 of 8 from the field with a dunk, a posterizing and one dunk on Rudy Gobert. I was actually shocked that Ty Lue put Terrence Mann in the starting lineup, but it was definitely a good decision because this kid, dude, I say it every damn game recap. What has this guy done wrong? Nothing. The only thing I thought he did absolutely, horrible this game in was the fact that he passed up too many good looks from three. Now I know Terrence Mann isn't really a 3-point shooter, but if they're just gonna give you the three, man, fuck it. Just pull it from three and just shoot it. Who knows? It will go in more than likely. Make them pay for leaving you wide open. So hopefully in game 6, if the Jazz play that whole, well, we'll let Terrence Mann shoot it. Well, guess what? I say Terrence Mann, just pull it. Let them pay. Let them pay from leaving you wide open for three. So that was the only issue I saw tonight with Terrence Mann, is the fact that he was very hesitant. He had some very good looks, but he wasn't willing to pull the trigger. So hopefully in game 6, he has more of a confidence in himself to do that. And I definitely think that dunk will exactly freaking help that confidence go skyrocketing to where he's like, oh no, I can do this. He had 2 rebounds, 2 assists, but Terrence Mann, this guy has been one of the saviors in the Clippers, and I'm going to say it again. If Doc Rivers was still coaching this team, Terrence Mann gets absolutely no minutes on this team. None. But because of all the injuries that happened, Ty Lue managed to have the confidence in him. And guess what? Terrence Mann has grown. Again, I said it before, I'll say it again. The one thing, despite all the Clippers season ends, I will take out of this is Team Mann's growth and development as an NBA player is so much more better than what I first thought from last year and when I first thought when we drafted him. Like, I thought he was just going to be a bona fide G League player. I thought he was going to be maybe another Jerome Robinson just chilling on the bench. But this guy's come in, and he's been an impact on the force. He's definitely a future player for this team. And I love this guy, man. Zubac, he only played 8 minutes, and he sucked. What more can I ask? I think it's a done deal that Zubac is honestly low-key. I'm not going to lie. I'm starting to get to the point where I love Zubac, but honestly, now I'm kind of more interested in listening to trade offers for Zubac, man. Like, I'm just being honest. Zubac in this run of the playoffs has been atrocious. He was virtually unplayable in the Dallas Mavericks series. And damn it, he's virtually unplayable in this series. He came into the game, the offense and the defense was completely discombobulated. It was thrown off, and he screwed everything up. Ladies and gentlemen, Clipper Nation, you might not want to hear this, but I think I'm fine. I think the Clippers might need to get rid of Zubac and invest in trying to trade him for another center in return. Because my God, Zoo at this point, he's becoming unplayable. And if we do get to Western Conference Finals and he just sucks in the Suns series, I'm sorry. You're going to have to look at this guy and you're going to have to, the front office is going to have to look at him and be like, yikes. Zubac didn't have a good playoffs at all. I think we might need to look into seeing what offers we can potentially get for him. Like, he's a non-factor at all. Just a non-factor. And if he's going to only barely play any minutes, what's the point in putting him on the court? At this point, you might as well just roll with the small ball lineup the rest of the way. It's just we'll see, man. We'll see. The Clippers haven't been good when it comes to drafting. And technically, they don't suck bad enough to where they can get a high draft pick where they can get maybe a very skilled big. But Zoo to me is just too soft. He's too slow. And he's just a deer in headlights, man. Like, out of all the playoff runs he's had with the Clippers, there's been 2 years he's virtually been unplayable. That was the first year after we traded for him when we played the Warriors in the first round, and now here. The only time he did great was the bubble run. And I think because of Doc Rivers' idiocy and his rotation management, he ruined what would have probably been a great Zoo playoff run. Because Zubac in the bubble in the playoffs definitely stepped up. And maybe that means Zoo was one of those few players that had those bubble step ups when there's no major spotlight because there's no fans in the arena. You're just playing in a gym. So, yeah. Rondo, he only had 9 minutes, didn't do much of anything, had 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Just like Zoo, he's kind of unplayable. There was a part in the game where I'm like, this lineup's not working, dude. Somebody's got to go. Again, Rondo, even though it was a short 9 minutes, I'll take it. It's just he hasn't been productive as I thought he would. He just hasn't. He's been, honest to God, awful. Other than a few games in this playoffs, he hasn't done nothing. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if he just gets 9 minutes and that's kind of it. So, yeah, listen, that's the reason why he only played is obviously because the Kawhi Leonard injury. So, yeah. Patrick Beverly, who I thought was, again, had another solid outing, played really great defense. There was times he pickpocketed the Jazz, and he had a very clutch 3 from Paul George. In 70 minutes, he was 2 of 5 from the field, hit one of his 3-pointers shots. He had 2 assists and 2 rebounds. Again, clutch play, our key big play by Patrick Beverly. This was a guy that was essentially unplayable in the Dallas series, and now he's come in and he's played great basketball, man. Just great basketball. Not offensively, but defensively, he's been good. And he had a really dumb foul, and that's kind of what happened to where he just got taken off for the rest of the game. But hey, Patrick Beverly gives me this type of intensity in Game 6. I think we're going to be winning that game. Luke Kennard, 20 minutes, 2 assists from the field. Only had 6 points, so hit only 2 of his 3-point shots. I would say he had a pretty solid, I guess an okay outing, not solid, okay. He was fine for me. That was just kind of it. Again, I only think the only one flaw is that Luke Kennard had a chance to shoot, but he was hesitant. He didn't pull it. So, yeah, but other than that, that's kind of it. But, yeah, that's kind of the Clippers rundown of stats. Now, the Jazz stuff, Royce O'Neal, he's a scrub. He shouldn't even have 10, 12 points, but he finished 4-11 from the field. He sucks. Bogdanovich had probably the game of his life, and the Jazz wasted away. 32 points. I was so glad the Clippers locked him up in the second half, man. He did not do anything in the second half. It was him having a lucky first half, and then the second half, he was. Oh, yeah, crickets. Rudy Gobert, 17 points. He got most of his points because there was a stretch in the game where he got like 4 or 5 straight offensive boards, and I was like, bro, just box this clown out. Joe Ingles, 12 points. He didn't really kill you that much. And Donovan Mitchell had 21 points. Niang still continues to suck, so he sucks. Derek Favors barely played any minutes in this game. He only had 6. And Jordan Clarkson, 29 minutes, 15 points. I'll live with that. Yeah, it also seems like Mike Conley probably ain't going to play any game in this series. So from what his interview said, because he said he had a setback and stuff like that. So I'm guessing Mike Conley's not playing for the series, which I think is a plus for the Clippers. Now, before I talk about the Kawhi injury, my thoughts on the Clippers winning Game 6. The Clippers can definitely do it. The way they played tonight is they're going to have to play it again. Dang near, it wasn't perfect, but it was almost close somewhat to being perfect. If the Clippers players can step up like they did in Game 5 tonight, they can win Game 6. Game 6 is now Game 7 for us. we need to finish the Jazz off because I do not want to go back to Utah. And sadly, that's going to be an afternoon game in Salt Lake City. Personally, finish this series up, move on, and it's going to play to your advantage because guess what? Chris Paul is going to be out because he's in COVID protocols and stuff like that. So, yeah. Now, the Kawhi injury. When I initially heard it, I was just like, wow. You know, waking up to the fact that you hear about the Chris Paul news first, and then only a few minutes later, you get the alert saying Kawhi Leonard out indefinitely because of a knee injury. The day goes on a bit, about an hour or two pass, you find out it's just a knee sprain, and you're like, okay, thank God. It's not as bad as it seems. Fine. He'll just be gone for maybe 2 to 4 weeks potentially, and he'll be back if we can get past the series. And then an hour or two later, you find out, or you hear that, guess what? It's a whole ass ACL injury. And now you're like, oh. Listen, injuries suck. I wish it didn't happen. Regardless, listen, I don't care how you feel about what the Joe Ingles thing happened. If you feel like it's a dirty play, you're more entitled to say if it's a dirty play. I think it's just an unfortunate accident or an unfortunate injury at the wrong place at the wrong time. But the least we can hope for as Clipper fans is the fact that Kawhi Leonard doesn't have a tear. Obviously, the swelling has to go down to see the test to see if it is a tear. Because if it is a tear, that's going to suck because he's going to be out essentially the rest of this playoff run and most of next season. I'll tell you one thing. One good thing is for the Clippers in this whole thing is the fact that this injury, if it comes out to be a tear of his ACL, Kawhi Leonard is definitely 100% re-signing with the Clippers if he opts out of the contract. He's definitely going to be a Clipper for life. Or for the essentially, he's going to retire as a Clipper. That's what I'm getting at. So that's the one thing we Clipper fans can be like, well, there's maybe some bright silver lining in this. That Kawhi Leonard is probably more than likely not going to leave. And again, the least we can hope for is it tends to be either an ACL strain or an ACL, a strain or a sprain. Which means if it's just that means he doesn't have to get really much surgery on it, and he just has to rest, and he'll be back in maybe 2 to 4 weeks. Again, that all depends on how far the Clippers go in the playoffs. If they can win Game 6 and they do the test and they say, well, Kawhi just has an ACL sprain, he more than likely will probably, if the Clippers can hold the Suns off long enough, be able to maybe potentially come back in that series. But we'll see with the Kawhi Leonard injury. I'll make a video on it whenever the official news of his injury comes out, and we'll talk about it. And wherever the Clippers are at this time or at that time, we'll see. Hopefully the Clippers can finish the Jazz off in Game 6. This has been the moment we've been waiting for as a Clippers fan base to finish off an opposing team and get past the dreaded second round and finally get into the Western Conference Finals. But again, this team has to not focus on getting to the Western Conference Finals. They just have to worry about winning Game 6 and taking it one game at a time. Listen, guys, it's great to celebrate and have fun with this great win and everything, but remember, the job's not done yet. The Clippers have at least one more win, if not 2 more wins to finish this series off. And personally, if you ask me, the best chance is to win in Game 6 because anything can happen in Game 7. But personally, I don't want to go back to Salt Lake City. I want to finish the game off in a packed Staples Center house. Let's redeem ourselves from the 2015 blunder and actually win a Game 6 game and finish this team off. So I said my prediction for this series was Clips in 6. Let's make this prediction fully. Let's bring this prediction to be true. But other than that, that's all I got to say tonight for tonight's Clippers game recap. Hopefully you guys enjoyed not only the win, but this Clippers game recap. But other than that, I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day or night or when checking this video. Oh, fuck. I forgot to talk about Paul George. God damn it, man. Shit. Paul George. Okay. I'm totally almost skipped over Paul George. What the hell am I talking? Okay, Paul George. Paul George was magnificent in this game, man. When we needed Paul George to step up and show us his playoff P self. And this man dropped 37 points. I'm just proud of this guy. And if he can have another great game on Friday night, I don't want to hear no more slander of Paul George. Get that shit out of my face, man. Now I know it's not as good getting into Western Conference, get into the finals and win it all, but I think people really need to shut the fuck up now on Paul George and stop calling him Pandemic P. He's been great this playoffs. Other than a few games, statistic-wise, he's been great this playoff run. And people are still going to clown him. This man dropped 37 points. Hold on, let me pull up the box score. Had 16 rebounds. And I believe that's a Clippers first in the playoffs. And 5 assists. Now, he was getting a little bit dicey, but he kind of kept it around with getting O'Neal to draw a foul on him, and he got the and one there. But Paul George was just great tonight. Just a great performance from him. And if he can replicate what he did here in Game 6, Clippers are going to be in, as well as the other players stepping up. The Clippers are going to be, they're definitely going to be in the Western Conference Finals. So credit to Paul George tonight for going to what you would say his house of horrors and getting the W. And again, if you haven't been paying attention to the Clippers have missed key players all year, and they have persevered by beating very tough teams. So, they did it here. Now, will the Jazz be more prepared on Friday to combat this team? Yes, they will. But I still think they're going to still take the Clippers for granted and say, they got away with it this one game. We won't let the slip up happen. But I think that's when the Clippers will be like, okay, keep underestimating us. And, yeah. But, again, like I was saying, ending this video off for good now. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on the Clippers win. Will the Clippers finish the series off in 6 games or potentially 7? Other than that, hit that subscribe button if you want to get more Clippers game recap, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, guys, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys on Friday for hopefully the game-clinching Game 6 W for the Clippers. Other than that, guys, have a great rest of your night. Peace.